Gonna move it over just a little bit.
I'm really happy to be talking to you, Vincent, today. Could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
Yes, my name is Vince Blazina. Currently, I work as a professional driver for ABM Corporation. However, my primary trade has been as a corporate manager for United Parcel Service. And yes, thank you.
That is great. Let's go with the first question. How many jobs did you used to do at the same time? Why?
Well, I used to work for United Parcel Service, and I worked at times 2 full-time positions for the same company. Each of those were salaried positions. As a production supervisor, that means I would work 2 shifts for the same company, and I would be paid salary times 2. So it was called double shifting, and so we would actually work 2 full-time positions each day.
Why did you do that?
Well, I did it personally to accelerate my mortgage payments, to pay down the mortgage quicker. So they offered the money and the opportunity to make the money, so I went for it.
That's so interesting. Is it easy to get a high-paying job?
Well, I find it's not. I mean, it's right now in this economy, it's difficult just to get a job, period. So to get a high-paying job, it's either going to require college education, or in my case, I started out as a physical laborer for UPS, for example, and I got promoted from within. So I first had to climb in the productivity levels. I first developed, ascended into the 50% productivity level, then 25%, and top 10% productivity level before I could get promoted from within. So it's a lot of hard work.
How many years did you have to do this hard work until you get promoted?
Well, it took me probably about 1.5 years before I got promoted.
Do you think it's an easy jump or a difficult jump?
Oh, it's very difficult. As far as you say a jump.
Okay. Let's go to another area. Can you start your own business?
Well, I have. I went into part-time self-employment after UPS to sustain myself, and I feel that's a very common thing right now.
Okay, let me ask this question. What are the requirements that you need to start your own business?
Oh, to start your own business? Well, as far as I'm aware, it's largely an IRS, the way you report your taxes. So I worked as a subcontractor. I worked as a private investigator, and I'm not sure how to answer your question other than that, but it's a way of IRS reporting. I worked as an entrepreneur, as a sole proprietor.
Let me ask you this question. Which is more stable, which is more comfortable for you, to be in a paying job or to do your own business?
Well, I would say to be in a paying job, so long as it's a larger size corporation, definitely.
So you mean that you're owning your own business is more risky, right?
I would say it's more risky because it's very dependent on the market. So I've done my own business as a private investigator, but my clients would sort of come and go. My clients would fluctuate, and there was a time when it was very prosperous for me, but then it was another time when the work sort of dried up. Probably a lot due to competition. So there's not as much security, at least in my experience, in the self-employment, and there's a lot of fluctuation there. Whereas working for a large corporation, you have a better idea of what's coming in the future.
Very nice. What are the requirements to join a management post?
Well, in my experience, there's 2 ways to get into management. One way is to be promoted from within the company, and another way is to be taken on as a manager from outside of a company, to be hired directly into a management position. And there are two different ways. Each of those different things have a different method. So if a person is being hired into a management position and they haven't worked with the company before, then they're going to need a good college degree, basically a piece of paper to get hired into a high-paying management position. However, if a person works within a corporation, as I did at United Parcel Service, I started out as a physical laborer, and United Parcel Service largely promotes from within. So I basically had to be a hard worker to get promoted. So it's a different way of being brought into a management position.
Very nice. Which is more important according to your experience, qualifications or practical experience?
Well, in the end, it would be practical experience. So again, I worked hard as a physical laborer and got promoted from within. I was breaking productivity records. I had highest employee retention, for example, out of our building with United Parcel Service. I had the highest average annual stats. And I did that. I had that productivity level prior to any schooling. So I actually outperformed those individuals who were college educated, even though I did not have the college education. I had strictly work experience, and I was breaking productivity records. I was outperforming all of the other employees at my level.
Let's get quite personal. What are your weaknesses?
My weakness, my primary weakness, has been that I've been a workaholic. And like I mentioned, I did the double shifting. I was working about 15 to 16 hours a day. And I did become sick with an ulcer by putting in so many hours, which jeopardized me for a time. So yeah, working too many hours, basically.
Sorry for that. Let's go to the other point. What are your strengths?
My strengths, well, I'm very familiar with ergonomics, productivity methods. I know and understand the most efficient physical movements or combination of physical movements to get a task done. And also coupled with that, I can train brand new employees to be productive on a job, not only to be productive, but to be more productive than a lot of the senior employees. I could train brand new employees to outproduce longer-term employees, longer-term senior employees.
Could you explain more on that?
Well, at United Parcel Service, for example, I had trained probably about 100 people, close to 100 people. And for example, I had one employee, I trained him in a very isolated condition. I trained him how to load a 53-foot semi-trailer, packages into a semi-trailer. I trained him in isolation, and he strictly observed how I worked. He saw no other workers, and he was in about a week. And this was an average kid who came in. But I gave him a superior level of training. He then outperformed the other longer-term employees in about 3 weeks' time. And so this was common. I would train people like this to outperform the current workforce, even though they were brand new employees.
Could you please explain more what do you mean by your method? How do you do it? What do you teach inside this method?
Well, basically, I had three stages of training. And again, this is training in ergonomics, what I would call ergonomics, which has to do with the most efficient physical movements in getting a job done. It's very similar to weight training, for example. Weight training has very specific movements to accomplish specific results, and so do work methods. So I trained people, one of the things I trained people is how to load trailers, 53-foot trailers with packages. And so the first stage of training is I would call it, in other words, I would demonstrate the task to the employee while the employee is passively watching me. I would both demonstrate the task, and as I would demonstrate the task, excuse me, I would actually narrate the task. I would describe each physical movement that I was engaging in. That it was stage one of the training. Then I would go into stage two of training the employee, and I would call the active stage, where I would be actively performing the task, and then the employee would be also actively performing the task right next to me, until we did it in precision together. Then I would go into stage three of the training. I would call it passive active, meaning I would passively watch the employee. I would not engage in physical movement. I would not speak. I would simply watch the employee perform the job, and the employee would be actively performing the job, and I would stay there passive and silent, just watching the employee until they were capable of performing the job from A to Z without any help. Now, of course, if they needed help, I would step in and help them, but I wanted them to be able to perform the job on their own, even in my absence, by the time the training was done.
Very interesting. Could you give me some more examples of what kind of job you can train?
Well, again, a couple of jobs. One of them was a 10-key calculator for an inventory company. The other one was basic load and unload. So basically, at the United Parcel Service, the employee had to check zip codes with packages. There were a high number of packages coming into a 53-foot trailer, about 1,700 packages at 24 pounds on average a piece in the space of 3.5 to 4 hours. They had to load into a trailer. So first they would have to check the zip code on each of those packages, 1,700 packages, and then they would have a laser scanner on their arm, and they would have to scan each package to do a location scan, letting the computer system know that that package had entered into that trailer, so they could track those packages in case a customer wants to know what location that package is in. And then they would actually have to take these packages, 24-pound packages on average, and load them into like a puzzle wall. They would build a wall 8 feet high to the ceiling with virtually no airspace, and they'd have to fill that 53-foot semi-trailer using up every square inch of space. No airspace could be allowed. Sometimes there was some airspace in there, but I'd have to train them how to build it efficiently and tightly so everything would stay in place there.
Let me ask you a question here. How did you build this kind of experience?
Well, for myself, I started out in a physical labor position. And so I worked for about 1.5 years as a physical laborer to develop the physical work methods. And in some cases, we even had people who were hired from outside the company who were directly hired into a management position. That was rare we would do that. And I would actually have to train these college-educated kids how to perform the physical labor, because they couldn't efficiently run a crew unless they understood how the physical labor itself was performed. So a college education was not enough to run a crew. There had to be physical labor skill and productivity to efficiently run a crew.
Question is, like, why don't you offer this as a course or a training program?
I suppose I could. I'd probably see, when I trained an employee, though, I would be physically present with the employee. I suppose I could make videos of some type. I don't have a 53-foot semi-trailer right now, but yeah, I would find that a bit of a challenge without being physically with the employee and having a physical semi-trailer. It might depend on the skill, though.
But let's say currently the world is moving and interacting with technology like never before. Technology has helped and provided a lot of tools. How can you incorporate the current tools with your experience so that you can provide this for the people who need it, even if they are not in the same place as you are?
That I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So this is maybe an idea for the future.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, let's go to another area. What would you have liked to have it changed about yourself?
Well, I did spend a bit too much time working. I was trying to make money, and I was making money to accelerate my mortgage payments. However, I did let other areas of my life lapse. I let my health lapse because I was working so many hours, and I let my relationships lapse. And so I sort of came into a little bit of a deficit in those areas because I was working all the time. So that's really something I would caution young people about. I mean, it's very important to be a hard worker, but it's not the best thing to be working all the time and to neglect health, for example, because those are going to be necessary to be successful in life in the long term. Working itself and having a career is my intention is to make money, and the reason we make money is so that we can potentially purchase real estate, a home. And so a career and making money are simply part of the process to potentially purchase real estate and to build a family, in my understanding.
Can you manage to do your job and do self-development work or self-development study at the same time?
I try to do that. I tend to involve myself in activities outside of work that promote my spiritual development. I engage in meditation, for example. I engage in various study courses and relational groups. I spend a relational time with my partner. So I would say yes, but it does take definitely setting aside time. It would be almost similar to an exercise program. If you can set aside an hour a day or a half hour a day to exercise, for example, then that would be beneficial. But a lot of people, they're busy, like I was for a long time. I was busy working all the time, and I would not set the time aside. But definitely there has to be time set aside outside of the work schedule to develop those things, because work is not always conducive to personal development. Maybe on a productivity level, I was able to develop myself in the workplace, but I was not able to develop myself holistically while on the work time.
Okay, let's say that, let's like estimate or say that your life plan has succeeded. Okay?
Okay.
What would your life in the ideal world look like now?
Well, I feel that there is a need to help to alleviate world suffering. There's a lot of suffering in the world, and I was basically focused on corporate productivity, which really didn't alleviate world suffering. I would like to be able to participate in some way in some humanitarian effort to help alleviate world suffering. I wasn't able to do that because I was focused on myself, basically. That would be ideal. So, for me.
Yeah, let's ask another question here. Let's take your life example, your life career until now, and say it, look at it as a model or an example. Would you recommend your life model to the other people, especially the young ones?
Well, I would recommend it up to a point, but again, I believe the hard work is necessary. Discipline and hard work, being faithful and consistent with the work. However, working the 80-hour work week for long extended years is not a good idea. So again, my example was was a difficult one in that I became sick with an ulcer condition because I was working 70, 80 hours per week on a regular basis, which injured my health. And then that took me out of the workforce, at least partially for a while. I couldn't maintain a management position while becoming physically ill. So I would recommend hard work is absolutely necessary, discipline, but don't work too many hours to the point that you get sick. I've seen many managers do that. They overdo it. They don't tend to other areas of the life. And that was my mistake, and that would be my encouragement to people.
Do you think that the world has failed you?
Do I think that the world has failed me? No, not at all. No, I need to apply myself in each and every situation. each struggle that I face. I just do my best with what resources I have, and I don't expect perfection of myself, but I just want to do my best, and the responsibility falls on me.
Let's go to another question here. Great. What else would you like to say?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to be on your show here today. I would again try to encourage young people that hard work is necessary, discipline is necessary. I would say that when a person enters into the workforce, a job is sort of like a vehicle in a sense. This is maybe a mundane illustration. A person may own a vehicle which is a nice, fine vehicle, or they might have a junker vehicle. A person might have a job which is a very nice, lucrative job, or they might have a very difficult, or maybe what they call a low-value job or a low-paying job. However, it's your job. You want to treat it the best way you can. Treat it like gold, and so you can develop something more. It's sort of like I remember when I was younger, I owned a junker car. It was a $1,000 car, but I had to treat it like gold for it to last. I had to respect the car that I owned before I could advance to something nicer. And the same thing with a job. Even if you have a beginning job, it doesn't pay a lot. Respect it as gold. Treat it well. And eventually you'll likely get something better. But if you don't respect your own job, if you don't treat your own job well, you may not have it forever. So
yeah, that's really inspiring and so helpful. It has been great, and my greatest pleasure to talk to you, Vincent, today. I really appreciate your time and your kind words.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a good day.